Okay, so we're doing a deep dive into this Daily Beast article today, and it's a juicy one, let me tell you. Trump is already providing clues to how he may contest the 2024 election. Dated September 30th, 2024, so, in case anyone's listening to this years later. But yeah, we're talking about election integrity again. Or should I say the supposed lack of it, depending on, who you're asking.
Yeah, it's definitely got people talking. And you're right. Questioning election integrity isn't exactly new, but what's interesting here is how Trump's doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's way earlier than usual, and with, way more intensity this time, wouldn't you say? The article really highlights that, makes you wonder if it's all part of some strategy, instead of just, off-the-cuff remarks.
Yeah, like he's setting the stage early. Okay, so the article gets into the nitty-gritty, and apparently Trump's been going off script at these rallies, throwing around some pretty serious accusations of cheating. And get this, he's even refusing to say he'll accept the election results. They've got quotes of him saying stuff like, "If they didn't cheat, I wouldn't even be here today." That's a pretty bold statement, don't you think?
Yeah, and it sounds like he's really choosing his words carefully, even focusing on specific places. Like the article mentions a rally in Erie, Pennsylvania. He actually said that even if God came down to watch over the election, he'd still be worried about cheating.
Wow, so even divine intervention wouldn't be enough. That's something else. But here's the thing, and the article makes this very clear. Election officials from both sides, Democrats and Republicans, plus all the experts, they haven't found any real proof to back up these claims of widespread fraud, including those about the 2020 election.
Right, and that's really important to remember, because the article doesn't just focus on Trump's claims. It goes deeper, talking about this election denial engine within the Republican Party itself.
Election denial engine. That sounds kind of intense. What does that even mean?
Well, it's basically this whole network of people and groups, all pushing the idea that U.S. elections can't be trusted. We're talking lawsuits trying to discredit voting systems. And then there's this monumental election integrity program that the Republican National Convention's promoting, which honestly sounds a little vague and kind of ominous, don't you think?
Yeah, a little bit. So how do you tell the difference between real worries about election security and, a political strategy to undermine people's faith in the system? Because it all seems kind of blurry right now.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And it gets even trickier when you see how these worries are starting to affect actual laws. The article brings up the SAVE Act as a perfect example.
Oh, right. That was the one that would have made people prove they're citizens to register to vote, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which is already a requirement to vote in the U.S. anyway.
Right.
So it makes you wonder what they were really trying to achieve. The SAVE Act didn't pass in the end, but
Yeah.
just the fact that it was proposed says a lot. It shows how these stories, true or not, can have real-world effects.
So even if there's no evidence, just saying these things over and over and even using them to justify new laws, that can be enough to make people doubt the whole system.
Absolutely. Think about it. If you keep hearing elections are rigged, even if it's not true, wouldn't you start wondering if the whole process is actually legit?
It's like they're planting seeds of doubt early on, so that no matter who wins, they can just cry foul and say it was rigged.
Exactly.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You create the doubt, and then any result is up for debate.
You got it.
It's scary, right? Like they're saying, heads I win, tails you cheated, before the coin's even flipped.
Exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
it makes the whole idea of a fair election meaningless. Like they're saying it's rigged before it even starts.
Yeah, talk about playing games, right? Well, the article ends on this interesting note about House Speaker Mike Johnson. He basically says, don't worry, I'm with Trump on this whole election security thing. But then he didn't even support that SAVE Act we were just talking about. What do you make of that?
It's like he's trying to have it both ways, It seems like he's trying to reassure voters, but at the same time, by bringing up those concerns, even without actually doing anything about them, keeps that doubt alive.
So you think it's more about keeping certain voters happy than actually fixing a real problem?
It's hard to say for sure, but it's definitely possible. And it shows the tough spot a lot of politicians are in these days. They've got to keep their supporters happy, but they also need to make sure people still trust the system.
It's a tough balancing act.
For sure.
So let's say the election is close, really close. Do you think we're going to see another 2020 with all the lawsuits and fighting?
It's definitely something to think about, especially with everything we've been discussing. The article doesn't say for sure what'll happen, but it does point out that all these claims of fraud could really cast a shadow over the whole thing.
It's kind of unsettling, like whoever wins or loses, a lot of people might already believe it was rigged. It's like the story, whether it's true or not, matters more than the actual votes.
Yeah, it shows how powerful our perceptions can be. In today's world, information, or misinformation, I guess, spreads so fast. Once an idea takes hold, it's almost impossible to change people's minds, even with proof.
It's like we're drowning in information and it's hard to tell what's real anymore.
And that's why it's so important to be careful about what we believe. We need to question things, look for evidence, and be open to different points of view. Don't just believe everything you hear.
Easier said than done, right?
Definitely. But it's something we all need to work on, especially with 2024 right around the corner.
Yeah, it's like we need some kind of superpower to figure out what's true anymore.
It's true, right? We need to be like information detectives or something.
Exactly.
And that's really what we're all about here on the deep dive, giving you the tools to think for yourselves and figure out what's what.
Totally. Because this isn't just some political reality show, right? This is serious stuff. We're talking about the future of democracy here.
Exactly. It affects all of us, no matter who we vote for.
That's a really good point. And it makes me wonder, like, does it even matter who wins in the end? When it comes to all this talk about election rigging, I mean, will the losers ever accept the results, or are we just stuck with this forever now?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I wish I had a crystal ball.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure. Words have power. They shape how we see the world.
It's true. The more you hear something, the more you start to believe it, even if it's not true.
Right, and that's why it's so important to be careful. Question everything. Be open to different sides of the story.
Well said. This has been a really thought-provoking deep dive, and I think it's safe to say that 2024 is going to be a wild ride. To everyone listening out there, stay curious, keep asking questions, and most importantly, don't believe everything you hear. We'll see you next time.